Are you going? I see somebody in the corner. Are you going to stay? Can you? Yes. Jackets up, ready to go? No? Okay. Maybe close your eyes for a second, if you will. Join me. Imagine walking through the economics department at University of Victoria. You've been there for almost 10 years. You're walking past the undergrad advisor's office. And you hear loud voices and two people talking. The undergrad advisor stops you and calls you in and introduces you to an alumni who has founded a successful technology company in Victoria. What do you think I did? This is what I'd invite you to imagine here, the next few steps in my life. How did I respond to that situation? Signed up. What? I'll tell you. I got the man's business card. I gave him a phone call about 5 minutes later. 10 minutes later, we were sitting down together over coffee having a conversation. Right? So I jumped right on the opportunity right when I found it. And shortly, this man described to me a relatively powerful idea for research. Something that he wasn't able to pursue within his company, but something that was very intriguing in terms of applied economics. So again, what do you think I did? When you encounter an idea in the wild, one of these creatures here. Well, I found a way to collaborate with them. I helped him get funding and research expertise at University of Victoria. So today we have a $25,000 Engage grant from NSERC underway with a computer science professor. We're hoping in the near future to add a zero to that and be working on a $250,000 project. Engineering guys, they seem to get a lot of the money. And sorry if the money makes me seem shallow, but I'm an economics student. So what? This alumni and this business person's point of view was that there's a lot of ideas out there, and specifically in terms of computational applied economics, very specific area, there were a lot of ideas that he saw. When I first met him, those ideas for me were very isolated, and they didn't mean particularly much. I didn't see opportunity. They weren't connected to any of my skills or my training. But very quickly after talking to him, I saw, from his perspective, all the ideas and how they could be related to who I am and where I'm coming from. The ideas started to become more connected. And now, this research with this business and these computer science professors, this is one of several themes in my PhD work. So this chance meeting and this different perspective on questions and ideas has been very valuable for me for finding topics and guiding some of my PhD activities. So the theme here is perspective. And I'll give you an image to help explain. If you look at a pen from the right angle, maybe it looks like just a point, isolated. And then you start to tilt it, and it starts to look like a line. A little bit more connected to other things. Potential to be more connected to other things in your life, in the ideas that you're thinking about. So this image of changing your point of view, it's useful in terms of, here we're changing the shape of the object, but it can also change, it applies to ideas. You can see new connections, new opportunities from trying on a different perspective. Okay, so some support for this point of view here, what I'm saying. Google, an executive from Google gave a speech recently about how they do innovation at their company. And I encourage youngsters out there here, young grad students looking for guidance, and go find this speech and study it very closely, because some of the things they're saying are basic ingredients for a successful academic career. And one in particular, innovation can come from anywhere. Okay, this is something that Google's talking about, one of their beliefs for success in their business. And I think this is relevant to our academic research. Anyone can do something or say something that can trigger a new idea for you, if you're open to it and paying attention, these kinds of things. So be aware. Prepare yourself as a researcher to find ideas out in the wild. An example with my PhD work, it was the summer before I was to start at UVic, and I managed to go to an industry conference here in Vancouver. Vancouver Finance, it's a pretty long and storied community, relatively controversial, but also the stuff that dreams are made of for some people. I encountered one company, and the company was buying farmland in Saskatchewan. Okay? They were getting lots of attention in the conference community because they had the whole hard asset thing going. The gold bugs in Vancouver loved it. Negative real interest rates and all that. But I thought, wait a second. What is the difference between these farmland investment funds and the mortgage-backed securities, say, from the US in 2006, 2007? Maybe you remember all these acronyms for securities that were deeply related to some of the financial crisis that is basically still ongoing. Encountering this investment fund gave me the ideas to write a research proposal that I used in my first year of my PhD. I applied to SSHRC, and that was my success. That was a success. They gave me a scholarship. My third try applying to Tri-Council, and I finally got it. I was talking about things like sovereignty, competitiveness, stability of the agricultural sector, and land ownership. Relatively big issues. And for me, something that felt like a very big win in terms of finding ideas out there and then bringing them into an academic setting and having traction with them and having people say, yes, go after these ideas. The first year PhD student, this was shocking, life-changing, positive experience. So now that I'm actually doing this research, I'm a third-year PhD student now, I've had to rephrase some of the research questions. The sovereignty words dropped out a little bit. Stability is a little bit tricky. I'm focusing now in terms of policy in Saskatchewan. And so there is policy there that restricts ownership. And basically, no foreign entities can own farmland. In the recent past, no Canadians outside of Saskatchewan could own farmland in Saskatchewan. Relatively stringent and striking policy. How does that relate to farmland investment? There's a whole bunch of work to be done there, and I'm starting along that path. So on this Saskatchewan policy, there's basically two prior research papers. One's from 2002, one's from 2006. They're both written by PhD students with advisors tagged along there. And they were both very influential in the PhD students' early stages of their career. For one of the students, they got a paper prize, best paper prize from the paper. And for another one, I met him at a conference, and he told me that it was very influential for helping him to get his first job after his PhD. So learning that was kind of yet another confirmation. Okay, I'm looking in an interesting area here. But then earlier this year, the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, as he mentioned here, thank you, Rob, they came out with resolutions calling for more research on Saskatchewan policy that restricts foreign ownership. Naturally, I'm the only graduate student in Canada that they could find who was working on this topic. Whether or not I'm the only one actually working on it, I'm the only one talking about it. So, I was in the right place at the right time. I was in the right place at the right time. How did I get there? By pulling ideas, not pushing my ideas. Okay? When you're doing applied research, you can pull ideas from the real world into your research, or you can push ideas from your research into the real world. Success requires a balance between the two, but when you're pulling, you're trying on a new perspective. When you're pushing, you're forcing your perspective on someone else. So, in terms of my theme of perspective, you can, and advice for graduate students out there listening today, try to pull ideas and try to find things that will help you position yourself in a potentially hot, exciting area. And this means pulling ideas generally from outside of the research literature, okay? This is a big deal for Green College. We have this motto, ideas and friendship. Logo behind me, coat of arms. When you're pushing your ideas and you're pushing your perspective, this isn't really friendship. When you're pulling and you're trying on somebody else's, that's friendship. That's understanding, that's empathy. So what I'm talking about arguably does connect very much with what we're all about here at Green College. All good back there? Okay. I'll also say pulling ideas requires very much some expertise or some interest in the art of conversation. I would suggest this is a lost art in our days of Twitter and text messaging. But changing art of conversation here. Arguably, it's alive at Green College. The way that we interact with each other in these tight quarters and the daily meals and the formal events, very much we're tasked with engaging in conversation with each other, and there's a certain art to that that can help you feel more comfortable or more productive and successful in this setting. So at Green College, I'm very grateful for the experience in terms of learning some of the art of conversation here. One more piece of passing advice. When you're pulling ideas and you're engaging in these conversations to find these ideas, a quote that occurred to me after a cold call with a hedge fund. You can't secure one of these projects in one conversation, but you can blow it in one conversation. Right? Tread carefully, don't pull too hard, you know. Friendship, again, the friendship part of our ideas and friendship here. Come on. Paper. Handwritten notes. In 2013, can you imagine it? So, 2007, I was working night shifts at a grocery. 2009, I started at Green College, and I was more or less an evangelist for the MyTax research internship funding opportunities for grad students out there. And the story of that transition is personal growth. It's character development. And it's related to trying on many different perspectives. So first off, I went to math camp. Simon Fraser University for a month in August of 2007. It felt like the right direction, you know, applied research, engaging with business people, and still at the university. But too young. There were some issues in terms of growing up that needed to happen. Thankfully, it led quickly into my dream job. At the time, I wanted to work with a stockbroker in Victoria, and based on funding opportunities that I found at Math Camp, I was able to negotiate my way into my dream job at the time. Again, a conversation at a wine and cheese party at an art gallery opening at UVic, and an agreement over a handshake in principle that this was something that we were both interested in doing. Obviously, a lot of legwork to fill it in and make it actually happen, but the conversation, again, was the piece that really put the structure there and gave me the motivation to keep going after this dream job at the time. Turned out, I was a terrible fit for that job. Didn't like it at all. Investment advisor assistant stuff. So it's getting coffee for clients. I thought we were going to be trading and doing some exciting stuff. No. Luckily, I went down early one morning, and I ran into a friend from UVic Economics, and September 2008 rolls around, and September 1st, I start day trading. September 1st, 2008. Yeah. So I had a front row seat for what was a relatively unprecedented time. Had very little idea what was actually happening in terms of historical context, but what an experience. And all from these chance conversations and trying on these different perspectives of different people and these interactions and going after applied research. So that day trading job led into a MyTax Accelerate, and I did that at the start of my grad school, right when I was starting to live here. And so that's the experience that led me to advocate this stuff for everyone else. And everyone was like, well, I don't do applied research, how can I? And based on the experience I just had, I just thought everybody could be involved in this stuff and could benefit from it. And so it was kind of formative. It was a formative experience for me. I didn't get a lot of traction with changing other people's minds, but I was pretty successful in determining my own. I definitely had a sense that this was something I wanted to do in the future, and happy to say success and since then and continuing with it. So perspectives, it's not going to benefit you if it's just the same perspective that you're already inhabiting. The value comes from trying on something different, and the challenge of seeing things from a different perspective. This is when you really get the value of different connections amongst ideas and things that are going on in your life. And this is Green College, because we have this multidisciplinary milieu. So we are exposed to other people's perspectives in our conversations, and as residents we start to get chances to practice trying on other people's lenses and perspectives. So as an immersive experience, very valuable. And so, for all of you, please pull ideas from unfamiliar sources. Challenge yourselves to try on some new perspectives and see if it can benefit you in your own work as creative people. Maybe a little joke about accounting, but I'm getting time signals, so I won't go into this one. And so to conclude, congratulations, Green College. To everyone here, very lucky. We all should feel very blessed to be part of it. The current management team with the principal, Dr. Mark Vesey, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the figures in the photos that we all know, their perspective on philanthropy is ours. It's our opportunity today, and it's our, again, blessing. It's a really unique experience. So thank you, Cecil and Ida Green. Thank you, Bill Gibson. And thank you to the audience for all your attention here today. Appreciate it.
My general question is, right now, we are running a students organization, grad students organization, and we are trying to get more, we have certain connection with people in industry. We're organizing industry night, we're organizing talks with people working. But our main objective is to try to have more like a bond with these people, try to put those ideas that we are just grad students doing, well, not just, but doing research, working all the day in a laboratory, in lab. Sometimes it's difficult to see the perspective of what is the people doing in the industry actually, what is actually the people in the industry doing. So, and we haven't been able to maybe go further of having a presentation with some person in the industry, a couple of questions, and then there's no more connection between us. So what kind of maybe advice or what kind of experience from your area can you share for the situation?
Incentives. Incentives matter. The conversations often go dead if there's no reason for the conversations to continue. So to have something that's really pulling it along in terms of resources or people, money or people, it's a case-by-case basis in terms of making it happen and being successful with it. But yeah, work on the incentives. The best projects are the easiest ones. So if you're really forcing it, then something's wrong, and structurally, not to discourage you, but happy to talk one-on-one.
Well, tell us more about the Saskatchewan policy. I find it really interesting. Does this go back to the advisory committees on reconstruction and that whole post-war rethinking of federal-provincial relationships, ownership, and resources, or is it more recent?
It's a little bit more recent in terms of 1970s, and it's basically a push back against the globalization that was happening at that time. So there was large foreign Japanese, basically, investment is what the stories that I've heard tell. And the politicians were this rallying cry of protecting rural communities. Foreign owners either weren't using the land well, or they were renting it back at high rates, and they were populist kind of claims against that. So in terms of when the policy started, yeah, early 70s, 1974. And 2002, policy was rolled back to allow all Canadians to start owning farmland in Saskatchewan. And relatively soon after, you started to see these investment funds popping up that are targeting it. And since then, the price changes have been pretty dramatic, and there's something of a bubble in farmland prices around the world right now. So does that address...
Yes, I mean, there's interesting things in Europe too. I mean, that's sort of a popular idea of farming as against high commercial investment. The policy keeps changing.
Well, in this policy, it appears around the world in different guises. You see it in equity markets. Some countries have companies that foreigners cannot invest in. You see it in farmland. In Brazil, foreign ownership, China. This is a very ubiquitous phenomenon that is received surprisingly little attention from what I can see.
I'm from a family farm, so I'm interested in the farmland conversation. But what I observe, I analyze high net worth Canadians quite a bit, and of the top 25 or 50, particularly I'm thinking in Ontario, I'm analyzing it for philanthropy purposes, but there's got to be 5 or 10 where a lot of that wealth was generated through purchases of farmland, and that it fits within real estate development. And this is the listing from Canadian Business magazine, so it's interesting. It's a big variable in philanthropy, and I guess support generally high net worth Canadians.
Well, I'll be happy to connect to discuss further. Very interesting.
Were you long or short on Bear Stearns?
No comment.
It's a different question for you. You really are the sort of entrepreneur, the free enterprise, fabulous. But on the other hand, there are bad ideas out there. Right? And so the recent report a couple of days ago from CAUT focusing on large corporations and funding research at universities, and the UBC cases, Pfizer, and the Alberta cases, the oil sands, and so on. So, I mean, and the whole tenor of this is that these ideas from out there, in fact, are limiting academic freedom and limiting the freedom of ideas that where you began. So, maybe say something about that.
Well, just that it connects back to the comment here that it's tough to keep these connections alive. You almost have to sell your soul to them to keep that. You have to start doing the work that they want you to do, and that's not necessarily what a concept of academic integrity or freedom is about. It depends a little bit on discipline. I've kind of drifted towards the engineering side a little bit, and it's a bit more obvious in that sense that, okay, we can work together, and ethical issues aside, we may encounter challenges that we may have to speak up about and say, look, that design is unsafe or something like this, but the bigger issues in terms of ethics are a little bit put in a back seat because they're trying to do something. So because those are so difficult, getting traction with the funding sources and potential disrepute and bad associations, that's kind of guided me more into more practical and applied stuff in my own work, just as a way to survive. Relatively unresolved, I would say, what you raised.
This isn't a question. Like, do you think that you would be working in agricultural stuff if you had not gone to that investment conference? Because you have absolutely no connection to farming or... How did I know that? Like, what are the chances?
Short answer is yes, because at UBC I was doing some stuff with weather derivatives, catastrophe bonds. You know, there's a whole bunch of securitization around weather risk, and there's big issues there that I was arguably going to study. But the stuff that I've found now is much more interesting and alive, and less studied, right? So yes, I would still be studying agriculture, but it wouldn't look the same at all. It would be much more financial and less tied to actual farming activities. So it's much improved from the conference. Thanks, Al.
Good time for one more question. All right, intellectual curiosity.
Well, I'm just going to say at Senate, who else at Senate? You would have. Our worthy president, in an interesting way, talked about the fact that government is not interested in data anymore. So I wonder, I can't remember his phrase.
No, we had a lovely line for it.
Yeah.
At the point when we just can't make the arguments anymore because it doesn't matter how good the data are. They're not interested in data.
So it should be interesting.
No, please do. That's the whole point, right? Being led astray. Like, this is one of the Google things that they